Salutations and welcome, friends, to another episode of Amalfi Sports. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis, and today we're headed to a new track in the heart of blue blood horse country, and that is Kentucky Downs, for a pair of Grade 2 races and a trio of Grade 3 races. However, before we get to that, just want to remind everyone to be on the lookout in the coming weeks for our new podcast, The Win Play Show. We have some cover art that we're designing for it. We're getting all of our ducks in a row for it. Should be out in the next week or two. Really excited about that. On the Win Play Show, you'll still be able to get all of your weekly previews, as well as the interviews that I conduct with people from across the world of horse racing. And listen, if you want to watch on YouTube, we're still going to have those available, but there are going to be some episodes, particularly post-race recaps and some maybe midweek episodes that are just going to be for the pod. But if you enjoy the YouTube, watching everything there, that's perfectly fine. The previews, the interviews will continue to go up on YouTube. But like I said, there's some additional benefits to following the Win Play Show, in addition to just ease of listening. So, also, wanted to let you know that moving forward, aside from Kentucky Downs, we will also be doing previews for races at Keeneland and Santa Anita as we move towards the Breeders' Cup prep season, and even the occasional one-off like Parks for the Pennsylvania Derby. And the best place for you to get all of that information is on the Amalfi Media YouTube channel, the Win Play Show podcast, and amalfimedia.com. Additionally, to stay up to date with all of the daily activity in horse racing, make sure to follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Always enjoy interacting with my listeners, debating who you like, who I like in certain races, favorite jockeys, favorite trainers, all that good stuff. We also have a Pennsylvania Derby giveaway that's going to be coming up, so you want to make sure to follow me on Twitter so you can be eligible to get some free swag sent your way from the Pennsylvania Derby. I'm going to be heading up there as my old stomping ground in southeastern Pennsylvania, so I'm excited about going up to see what should be a wonderful Pennsylvania Derby and great day of racing in southeastern Pennsylvania. Finally, head over to amalfimedia.com to get all of the content that we provide, from history to politics to cooking to finance to pop culture and so much more. You might have just learned about us through horse racing, but we are so much more. Anything that you're interested in, good chance that we have it. As always, please make sure to like and comment with your thoughts on how the races are going to break down in your opinion this weekend, and share with your fellow horse racing fanatics on social media. Okay, well, let's dive in and talk a little bit about Kentucky Downs. And I want to start by just talking a bit about the track. A couple of important notes. It's all turf racing. So that is right off the bat something, if you're not familiar with Kentucky Downs, it's all turf racing. And so when you're looking at the racing forms, if you're seeing horses that are, don't have turf experience and are transitioning, that's something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that Kentucky Downs has a very odd configuration. It is not a traditional oval. It almost looks like a shower hook in some way, in that it has kind of a very tight turn at the top and then a very looping turn on the other side. And so it's not symmetrical. And you're going to have horses taking very tight turns and then horses taking very wide turns. The home stretch is not nearly as long as you might expect in other major tracks like Saratoga or like Belmont. So it's an oddly configured course. That means that you have to start moving horses at different times and different locations. You'd still be moving a horse at the same, at the 3/8 pole, for instance. You might still start to move a horse at that point, but where the 3/8 pole falls at Kentucky Downs is a little bit different than where it falls at other tracks. So very fascinating. Additionally, the turf course there honestly reflects more of what you see over in England. It's a little bit more uphill at the finish, actually. It's not this kind of perfectly level turf course, so it's a little bit more undulating. Because of that, I would always recommend that when you're looking at horses, and this is something I'll comment on for a few of the races, if you see that a race is a mile, you might want to see that a horse has gone over a mile in the past because it's going to exert a little bit more energy. And I'd say the same thing's true for sprinters. If you're seeing a 6 furlong race, well, it'd be nice if you saw the horse did well at 7 furlongs or at least 6.5. So just little things like that to keep in mind that there are, maybe it favors a late kicker, a horse that's, fading down the stretch traditionally might fade a little bit more. So it's just important things to keep in mind. Finally, last weekend was the first weekend for Kentucky Downs this season, and Joel Rosario put on a show. Over the weekend, he ran in 19 races and he won 10 of them. That's right, he won 52% of the races that he was running in. Now, some might say that part of that is because all of the other kind of great jockeys were on the West Coast at Del Mar or in the East Coast at Saratoga finishing up those seasons. Rosario made the decision to go down to Kentucky early. And so he racked up 10 wins and 19 tries. That is an astounding percentage. But the bottom line is Joel Rosario clearly knows how to run this course. And so he is somebody to be taken quite seriously. And Josh Rodriguez, who's been on the show before, has talked about Joel Rosario's ability as a jockey. He is, in Josh's words, kind of a maddening jockey, but he is someone, when he is on, he is really on, and he can give horses an incredible ride. So it's just something for you to keep in mind as we move into a season at Kentucky Downs. So now, enough about the course. Let's actually talk about the races. And there are 5 graded stakes races on the card on Saturday. But rather than try to go through all 5 in great detail, I'm going to show you my picks for a trio of grade 3 races and give you kind of a quick preview. And then we'll spend most of the time dissecting the 2 grade 2 races. And remember, to get all of my picks for all of the races on the card on Saturday, head over to amalfimedia.com. I have a blog there, give a little quick paragraph long analysis for each race and who I think is going to finish first, second, third, and fourth. So with that said, let's take a look at how I see the trio of grade 3 races on the card on Saturday shaking out and how I think we're going to see these races go. So the first grade 3 race is the Mint Ladies Sprint, and that is 6.5 furlongs. I really, in this one, I'm going to go try to go for a little bit of value. I'm going to go for Jeannie B to win. She's so special to place, and Venetian Harbor to show. Venetian Harbor's the favorite, and I understand why, but there's something I like about Jeannie B. This is a horse that has put in some really strong workouts and seems to be consistently improving each time out. Also, lost to Amalfi Coast last time. Of course, somebody who works for Amalfi Media, you got to like the horse Amalfi Coast. But Amalfi Coast has gone out and continued to do quite well after that run. So, lost to a good horse in that regard and has done very well in other races, continuing to improve. Like I said, really like the little workout. Joe Bravo, a good jockey coming from the West Coast. That's another interesting thing to take into consideration here is you have these East Coast and West Coast jockeys both coming to Kentucky. So it's really fun to see kind of this clashing of worlds to that extent. Now, as for the horse I have coming in second, She's So Special, this is where I think I'm going to look for a little bit of value. Not surprising, jockeyed, as you can see here, by Joel Rosario. So I may be chasing the hot jock right now, but I think Rosario can give her a good ride. She has run at Kentucky Downs before. That is something I'm putting a little bit more of an emphasis on when handicapping these early races in the season. Horses that have experience at Kentucky Downs, I just favor because at least they understand what's going to be required of them. Additionally, strong workouts. So a lot to like there. Venetian Harbor is a very good horse, far from unbeatable though, and has run a couple of very strong numbers. It does tend to be very consistent. But again, I just think at 3-1, I don't necessarily love the value here. Florent Giroux has been kind of up and down this season a little bit. And so I'm going to go with Venetian Harbor in third. Now, let's talk a little bit about the next grade 3 race, which is the 7th race on the card, the Kentucky Downs Ladies Turf. And I have this one a little bit more chalky. I really like Princess Grace. I kind of went in circles around how could I, find some additional value. How could I potentially fade the favorite? I just can't in this particular case. Princess Grace, I just think is an outstanding horse, and she's proved herself many times. I loved her going into the Yellow Ribbon Handicap, which she won in pretty easy fashion. So I just think she's a very impressive horse that's had strong workouts, good connections, and is, I think, the most dominant horse in the field. Now, to place, I do like She's on the Warpath. This is a horse that seems to like this distance quite a bit, and puts in really consistent outings. I like that. This is a horse that's finished in the money 3 out of 4 times this year, winning 2 of them. Adam Bashiza has been riding this horse consistently for the last year, basically. So I like the consistency there, and you get a little bit of value if you want to do an exacta with both of them. And then finally, Princess Causeway. This is where I might be chasing a little bit of value in terms of this is a horse that has won twice at Kentucky Downs in 3 career starts. So even though you're going off at a little bit higher odds, even though this horse may not have quite the upper end speed numbers, this horse does seem to do well at this particular track and has had some really strong workouts. So I really like Princess Causeway quite a bit in this, and I think that's where you're going to find some value. And I wouldn't even be shocked if Princess Causeway finishes second. I have She Is on the Warpath there, but I think those 2 horses very evenly matched, and I'll be excited to see how that plays out. So let's go to the final of the Grade 3 races, which is the FanDuel Turf Sprint, which is 6 furlongs. And here, there's a little bit of chalk. I mean, Got Stormy and Casa Creed are the top 2 favorites. You can see Casa Creed going off at 7-2, Got Stormy going off at 9-2. I like Got Stormy. I was in Saratoga the day of the 4-Star Dan when Got Stormy won that race and kind of upset the field a little bit. I really like this horse though, and I just think Got Stormy is such a classy horse. So I like Got Stormy to win this particular race. I like Born Great. If you're going to look for value in this race, I think this is where to look for it. Again, 2 for 2 at Kentucky Downs. This is a horse that knows the track, has won at the track. I like that quite a bit. This is a step up in distance a little bit, which is slightly concerning, like I said, due to that uphill finish. Although if you look, this is a horse that has run 6.5 furlongs, has run a mile in the past. So it's certainly capable of running a longer distance. Doesn't always do it with incredible class. Does seem to prefer that 5.5 furlongs. But again, I think having run so well at Kentucky Downs, it's a horse that I have a little bit more faith in that regard. And then I have Casa Creed coming in third. This is the morning line favorite, trained by Bill Mott, jockeyed by Junior Alvarado. But I think Casa Creed, while a very good horse, I just have a feeling I'm just going to fade this horse here. I don't know. This horse does seem to do better at shorter distances, and so this would kind of presumably set up well. But I do like Casa Creed to hit the board because that's what Casa Creed tends to do, is hit the board. Very consistent horse over the last year or so in getting on the board. But I just think Got Stormy is going to be a little too much. Maybe that's a sentimental pick because everybody kind of really loves that horse. But I like Tyler Gaffalione to bring him home in first place. So that's how I see the 3 Grade 3 races playing out on the card for Saturday at Kentucky Downs. But there are a duo of Grade 2 races that are going on that same day. And so I want to talk a little bit about those in more detail. And so the first of those is the Calumet Turf Cup, which is a Grade 2 race going 1.5 miles for 3-year-olds and up on turf. So let's do like we normally do and take a look at that field for the Calumet Turf Cup. And starting off with the 1 hole is Emperador, an Argentinian horse, trained by Paulo Lobo and jockeyed by Joseph Talamo. Then you have Crossfire Hurricane, trained by Michael McCarthy and jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. Then Channel Cat, trained by Jack Sisterton and jockeyed by John Velasquez. Then Tide of the Sea, trained by Mike Maker, jockeyed by Luis Saez. Then you have Morning Line favorite Arklow, trained by Brad Cox and jockeyed by Florent Giroux. Then you have a horse that won its last time out, actually, and it little bit of a live long shot, Bluegrass Parkway, trained by Mike Maker and jockeyed by Julian Leperoux. Then Fantasioso, another Argentinian horse, trained by Ignacio Correas IV and jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli. A Journey to Freedom coming in at the 8 hole, again trained by Mike Maker and jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. 9 hole, Glen County, another Mike Maker horse, jockeyed by Tyler Gaffleone. Then Epic Bromance, trained by J.K. Sweezy and jockeyed by Joe Bravo. In the 11th hole, you have Zulu Alpha, the final of the Mike Maker horses, jockeyed by, Ricardo Santana Jr. And then finally, Break Point, a Chilean horse trained by Steve Asmussen and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. Well, as you can see, this is a really loaded field. We're not going to talk about each of these horses, but I actually really like chasing some value in this race. I am not overwhelmed by the favorites in this race. I am not overwhelmed by Arklow and Channel Cat. Arklow has not performed particularly well the last 2 times out. Channel Cat, kind of the same thing, needs a little bit of a bounce back. So these are not dominating. This is not Princess Grace in some of the earlier races where it's hard to move around from the chalk. This is one where I think you can chase a lot of value, and I think there's a lot of value to be had in the field. Speaking of value, let's start by talking about a few of these horses that I do like in this race. Imperador. This is a horse that's going off at 15-1. It's a horse that ran very competitively at the United Nations, ran a relatively close second to Trehuvon. Now, that said, this horse will not have Lasix this time out. It did have Lasix last time out, so that is something to keep in mind. Additionally, this will be a little bit more of a stretch out. This horse has not done quite as well in a mile and a half, so something to keep in mind. But at 15-1, I do like the value there. I'm not entirely sold on this horse hitting the board. The Lasix thing does concern me a little bit. Some of the recent workouts have not been super crisp. But again, at 15-1, this horse does offer something there. Channel Cat is another kind of horse that I mentioned earlier. This is a horse that has been putting up, if you just look at buyer speed numbers, has been putting up consistent numbers, not necessarily consistent finishes. Started off 2021, going 5th, 2nd, 1st, 7th, 4th. I mean, so you're kind of all over the place with how this horse ends up performing. This is a horse that's owned by Calumet, obviously the namesake of the race. So if you believe in kind of coincidences, or if you believe in that sort of symmetry, maybe you decide this is the race that Channel Cat turns it around in. Needs a bounce back, has won on this track before. Distance won't be an issue. That said, some slow workouts, and I think, some of the best races have been against smaller fields. As you can see, this is a 12-horse field. When you look at Channel Cat's history, the more horses in the race, the worse this horse performs. Again, this is a horse that does tend to come from off the pace a little bit, has in the past, has developed a little bit more of a front-running style recently, but that really killed the horse in the Bowling Green stakes at Saratoga last time out. Really set an unrealistic pace for the horse and ultimately faded down the stretch. So again, I don't love Channel Cat at 9-2 value. Fade this horse a little bit. Now, I do want to talk about Tide of the Sea. This is a horse I like. This is a horse that's improving, has had some erratic performances lately, but I trust Luis Saez quite a bit. Mike Maker ended up on a really cold streak in Saratoga, but it has put up some impressive numbers this year. And this is a horse that loves the distance and the course. This is a horse that has won on the course, and going a mile and a half 4 times, has finished in the money 3 of those 4 times, 2 wins and a second. So this is a horse that can do the distance and likes the course. So there's, like I said, a great deal to like there. Now, if you look at the next horse, which is the morning line favorite, Arklow. Arklow this is a horse I just don't like. And I talked about it at the Del Mar handicap. I said I was fading Arklow. Guess what? Arklow finished 7th. So I guess I wasn't wrong to fade Arklow in that race. I don't understand why this horse is the morning line favorite. And I mean, on a certain level, I guess I do when I look at the rest of the field. But this is a horse that's finished 6th and 7th the last 2 times out. Did have 2 firsts before that. But I just, something seems off with this horse. Now, this is a horse that has done well, has won 2 races at Kentucky Downs in 3 tries, does seem to like the distance as well, has won 5 mile-and-a-half races and 13 career efforts. So there are things to like there. It just feels like there's something off with this horse. And as horses get older, you just worry that things start to go. Arklow is 7 years old now, and I'm just a little concerned about whether or not maybe he's lost a little bit from his fastball. And so I think that's a concern that I have with Arklow. And again, at 3-1, I just don't love those odds. Now, maybe returning back to Kentucky Downs is exactly what this horse needs. It can take to the turf really well. But I can't ignore the trend the last few times out, which has been concerning. If he comes back and wins, kudos. But I think that's going to be a tall order. Now let's talk a little bit about Glen County. This is a horse that's going off at 15-1. I think you can see a lot of value here. This is an improving horse, keeps getting faster, keeps getting better, keeps performing better, and finishing better. Has won at this distance and won at Kentucky Downs. I like these things. These are good things to see. I think this horse provides great value. The workouts haven't blown me away recently, but again, when you're working out at 5 furlongs and then you're running a mile and a half, I don't know how much a 5 furlong workout will always tell you about how a horse does on a mile and a half. So much of this is going to have to do with pace and how they finish, etc. So I think Glen County at 15-1 provides some really strong value to hit the board. Now, let's talk a bit about Zulu Alpha. This is a horse, I think that I like Zulu Alpha only maybe for the jockey. Ricardo Santana Jr. is a jockey that is, if anybody watched Saratoga last weekend, has been winning some impressive 1-5 grade 1 races at Saratoga this season. So big money Ricardo Santana has been coming through in the clutch. So you have to take any horse jockeyed by him seriously. Also has won at this track and at this distance. That said, everything I said about Arklow, I'd almost double down on for Zulu Alpha. Zulu Alpha is a year older, is 8 years old. I just really worry that the best days are behind him. I just don't love the value. Some of the workouts haven't been bad, but they've been erratic. They've been kind of all over the place. So again, I think Zulu Alpha at 6-1. I don't hate those odds, but don't love them either. So let's talk about a final horse that I think you can find a lot of value on, and that's Breakpoint. And you might think I'm crazy, and this is more of a hunch play on my part, I fully admit. But this is a horse, I love the value. 20-1, are you kidding me? Steve Asmussen, Jose Ortiz, I'll take that combination. This is a horse that used to be in Chad Brown's barn, is now moving to Asmussen's barn. This has happened a couple of times this past year where horses that were in Brown's barn have moved and performed very well in the first race after the move. And so they're changing jockeys, changing barns, could be exactly what this horse needs. This horse was a monster down in Chile. Now, you could say, well, there's not much competition, but this is a horse that won 3 consecutive grade 1 races down there. Has not come close to replicating that effort here in the United States. I don't think Breakpoint wins, but I love at 20-1 for Breakpoint to hit the board. And like I said, I think you're going to see maybe the best effort yet out of this horse with new trainer, with a new jockey, on a new surface. And I think there's a lot to like there in terms of price and value. So how do I see the Calumet Turf Cup playing out? Well, I'm going to chase a little bit of value in this particular race because I'm not in love with the favorites. So I'm going to go with the 4, Tide of the Sea to win. I'm going to go with Breakpoint to come in second. I do think Arklow will finish third. I think he'll have a little bit of a bounce back effort, liking this track, liking this distance. And then I have Glen County fourth. So I have it 4, 12, 5, 9. Tide of the Sea, Breakpoint, Arklow, Glen County. All right. Well, let's wrap up with the 10th race on the card, which is the Franklin Simpson Grade 2 stakes, and that is 6.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds, of course, on the turf. And let's take a look at that field. So we'll start off in the number 1 hole, Into the Sunrise, trained by Wesley Ward and jockeyed by Rad Ortiz Jr. And then the Learjet, trained by Brendan Walsh and jockeyed by Tyler Gaffleone. In the number 3 hole, County Final, trained by Steve Asmussen, jockeyed by Joel Rosario. In the number 4 hole, Easy Time, trained by Mark Cassie and jockeyed by Adam Bashiza. And then in the 5 hole, Miss Amulet, Irish horse, trained by Ken Condon and jockeyed by Julian Leperoux. Then Next, trained by Wesley Ward as well and jockeyed by John Velasquez. In the number 7 hole, Annex, trained by Bill Mott and jockeyed by Junior Alvarado. And then you have Tango, 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 trained by Jack Sisterton and jockeyed by Cannon. And then you have Omaha City, trained by Mohammed Jahludi and jockeyed by Vernon LeBron. And then you have Point Me By, trained by Eddie Kennelly and jockeyed by Louis Saez. Then Bodiheimer, trained by Valerie Lund and jockeyed by Brian Hernandez Jr. And then finally, King of Miami, trained by Larry Ravelli and jockeyed by Florent Giroux. So let's talk a little bit about this race. And I feel like this is almost the opposite from the Calumet Turf Cup. I feel like that's where you can find value. This race feels much more chalky to me. This is a race where I feel like the favorites are the favorites for a reason. And when you dive deep on any of these long shots, you find things you do not like about them very quickly. Now, it doesn't mean they can't come up and do well, but it would take a pretty incredible effort by some of these horses to do that, particularly on a surface that almost none of them have ever run on before. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Most of these horses have no experience at Kentucky Downs. Now, you could flip it around and go, well, maybe that puts the long shots in play. Because nobody's got experience, maybe one of these horses takes to this track really well in a way that we wouldn't expect, and that's where you're going to find value. Maybe. But good luck letting me know which one that is. There's not like other courses that are shaped like Kentucky Downs that you can go, well, they did well there, so they're going to do well here. So this race, like I said, feels like a lot of chalk. What's going to be fascinating about this race is the early speed. Into the Sunrise and Bodenheimer are going to run for that lead going into the first turn. That both horses like to be on the lead. Both horses have a lot of speed. I'm a little bit more bullish on Into the Sunrise still being there late, but this is a horse that traditionally likes running at 5 to 5.5 furlongs. And so I think even just stretching out to 6.5 furlongs is a problem there. But I think this horse can maybe hold on, maybe get on the back end of some exotics. There's something there. For me, when I look at this race, and I didn't even look at the odds when I started capping this, Point Me By is clearly the best horse in the field. And I think Point Me By has everything that I like. This is the favorite. This horse keeps getting faster. The workouts keep getting stronger. Distance won't be an issue, nor will speed be an issue. This horse can go fast. This horse can go distance. This horse can go short. Very versatile horse. So Point Me By, I just really like a lot. I think this is a horse that's just got incredible value. And I think it's 7-2. Honestly, I'm sure it'll get bet down considerably, but I just think at 7-2, you're still getting phenomenal odds for a horse that I really, really like. And you all know that I have that I like lightly raced horses that keep improving, that show strong workouts. But this is not a huge step up. This is a horse that won a grade 1 last time out. So this is a horse that, has gone up against really good competition and won. So it's a proven commodity, much more so than a long shot. Now let's talk a little bit about some other of the horses in the field, though, to round out the card and round out the board. Next is an interesting horse going off at 5-1. I'm fading Next a little bit, and I'll tell you why. If you look, you would say, well, he's one of the few horses in this field that's actually won at Kentucky Downs, and that's true. Don't get fooled by that. If you go back and look, it was a maiden special weight, second race the horse ever run. Really middling competition is being polite. Otherwise, the recent efforts have been very mediocre. And so I don't love Next here. I particularly don't love Next at 5-1. So I'm a little out on Next. I just don't think he's going to be able to be much of a factor in this particular race. I think he's going to fade down the stretch. Annex is a fascinating horse. This is a horse that's lost to some very good horses. Lost to Public Sector, who just won a Grade One last week. Has lost to De Jour, who's another very good horse. Has actually come in behind Public Sector a couple of times, different races. So this is a horse that's gone up against pretty good competition in other races. Finished a step behind or a couple of steps behind, but started off its career very strong at Gulfstream Park. Clearly, that has not translated as he stepped up in class to Churchill, to Belmont, to Saratoga. But still, this horse can run improving numbers. And so I think that's something to keep in mind. Has had strong workouts as of recently. And while not an overwhelming 9-2 shot, I think certainly a viable candidate to hit the board. So now the one thing about this is Annex is the type of horse that will like to come into early speed, meaning that he'll want there to be early speed in the race so that he can run into it a little bit. But if those fractions are too fast, then that might be a bit of an issue. It might wear him out depending on how he's placed. Hopefully Junior Alvarado, Bill Mott, I trust a great deal. Junior Alvarado maybe a little less, but presumably Bill Mott's going to give Junior pretty explicit instructions about where he wants Annex placed in this large of a field. So let's talk about another horse, County Final. And this is a horse going off at 8-1. Why am I talking about this horse? Well, look at the jockey, Joel Rosario. One has winning 52% of his mounts so far at Kentucky Downs. How can you not talk about Joel in this particular race? But in all seriousness, even if it was somebody else aboard, this is still an intriguing horse. This is a horse that has improving time speed figures, has faced decent competition at times. Has gone up against Golden Pal, has gone up against Gretzky the Great, Roderick. These are decent horses that he's going up against in a lot of these races. Has run in a couple of Grade 2, Grade 3 races, finished on the board in one of them. And so I do think that this is a horse that with Joel Rosario aboard becomes a horse you can find some value in. And like I said, otherwise a pretty chalky race, at least in terms of at the very top end. This is also another horse that's owned by Calumet. So if you believe in that sort of synergy, go for it. It's hit the board the last 2 times out with 2 consecutive second place finishes. So trending in the right direction. Another horse where you might find some value is Tango Tango Tango. This is a horse going off at 20-1. This is a horse that came in second to Point Me By last time out in a Grade 1 race. Now, granted, came in second, pretty far out, in terms of came from second, about 3 lengths behind. So it was not a bang-bang sort of photo finish there with Point Me By. Also, that race featured some pretty slow early fractions, which will probably not be the case here. And so this is a horse that may struggle. And because he's not really a sprinter's horse, he's been going a mile and a 16th. Although, as I said, with the configuration of Kentucky Downs, with the undulation of the course, I actually like horses that may not be pure sprint horses, that are accustomed to going a little bit more, that will have plenty left in the tank at 6.5 furlongs, and Tango 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 will have plenty left in the tank at 6.5 furlongs. So I like that part of it. The other thing to point out here is, you go through some of these other horses, whether it's Omaha City, whether it's Bodenheimer, whether it's Miss Amulet, whether it's the Learjet. These are pretty ordinary horses in a lot of cases. I think I'm kind of surprised this is a Grade 2 field, to be honest. I feel like the Calumet Turf Cup has a significantly stronger field than this one. But we'll see. So that's why I don't count out a 20-1 shot that at least has a couple of things that I like here and has run competitively, at least, with the favorite in this field. Do I like Tango 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 to win? No. But do I like Tango 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 in exotics? Sure. I do. I think there's something there. So how do I see the Franklin Simpson Stakes playing out? Well, like I said, I'm going with a little bit of chalk here. I have Point Me By, Annex, County Final, and Tango Tango Tango. I think the back end of exotics is where you're going to have to find some additional value here, but I just really like the favorite in this race. So I have the 10, Point Me By, the 7, Annex, the 3, County Final, and the 8, Tango Tango Tango. All right, so that's how I see things shaking out at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. And I hope you enjoyed this preview of the races. And just to let you know, I'll be playing on some of the stable duel races for the Kentucky Downs. So build your own stable, go over to amalfimedia.com, get Saturday's card there, get all my picks, all my previews for the races on the entire card at Kentucky Downs. And hey, if you think I have some good ideas, maybe go enter a stable of your own at Stable Duel. But again, the only place to get all of this information is amalfimedia.com. Finally, just a reminder to subscribe to Amalfi Media on YouTube. Be on the lookout for the launch of the Win Play Show podcast. Follow me on the Twitter at the handle at Failed to Menace. Get your chance to get a Pennsylvania Derby giveaway by doing that. And check out all that Amalfi Media has to offer, including the great horse racing content that you need to get you through the Breeders' Cup and beyond. Until next time, friends, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.